Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your thoughts. This ain't a regular conversation, baby. This that Dealer Talk. Yeah.
What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. So glad you're able to join us today for another exciting episode. Let's check in with our co-hosts, Miss Charity Ann Farber.
What is up?
Put some clapping there, Luis. Yeah. What's up, kid? How you doing?
What's pretty good? How are you?
I'm doing great. You just got back from the podcast convention in Las Vegas.
Yep.
How was that? How was that deal?
I sure did. It's good. I learned a lot. I did.
Did you meet Lance Bass?
No. I didn't even go to see him speak. Can you believe it? I got distracted about the nerdiest thing and I forgot about Lance Bass. I got distracted talking about Star Trek.
Oh my God. If he only knew that you like the Backstreet Boys and not NSYNC.
And Star Trek more than him.
Star Trek more.
It was great. There were some really, really fascinating podcasts out there. This one is he trains management skills using Star Trek episodes.
He said what?
He trains management skills using Star Trek episodes.
I can see it. I can see that.
Yeah.
You know, when you have to take on intergalactic challenges, the earthly ones kind of pale in comparison.
Yeah. And then he consulting company where he uses different things like Star Trek or Harry Potter or whatever to train management skills, depending on what company wants to learn.
Very cool. What is it? What's the name? Let's give them a shout out. Come on, you don't remember?
Lessons from this.
Oh, I don't think I can do that on YouTube.
Starfleet Leadership Academy.
Well, that's different and creative. I like it. Does he do it for the automotive industry?
He had two podcasts. So that one, and then one where there's this cult classic TV show called Babylon 5.
Yes.
Are you there?
No, I'm just
very
determined and focused.
There's a cult classic where called Babylon 5 that he'd never seen before. So his friend and him watch the episodes and then talk about the episode afterward. And apparently he's got like a ridiculous following on that one of people that are just waiting for him to find out the next big thing in the TV show. That's a good idea. We should watch a TV show and just talk about it afterwards.
Did you hear my question? I'm trying to bring this back to the automotive industry, dude.
No.
Like, does he do training for
that was probably when
dealerships?
you were frozen.
Well, exactly.
No.
So, I don't know.
I need to learn more about audio.
Why? Audio's good.
Can we just hire somebody to learn more about audio?
It's probably not a bad idea. I mean, I did send you to the podcast convention so that you could learn, but...
You want to know what I learned about audio?
LFUS?
LUFS.
LUFS.
LUFS. I spent an hour taking notes and the notes had a ton of question marks, to which point they finally just said, I have no idea what they're saying.
Yeah, but last week you didn't know what LUFS were.
I didn't know LUFS was an acronym.
Right, exactly. So we're learning. It's progress, kid. Look, when I first started, I used to have a cardboard box around my microphone. And we didn't even have video. So, I mean, this is like, you know, we're leaps and bounds here.
There's a thing called mic technique. Did you know that?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, if you're in like production or TV, then everybody knows what mic technique is. But
And they
do you
know
want to
about
know what
roughs.
else I learned about the podcasting convention?
What?
Podcasters don't know how to sell.
Why? Were they trying to sell you stuff?
Well, because it was a convention, so they had like a floor with all of their products, and it was funny.
What? Okay, give me an example.
It just didn't compare to NADA. Like they'll tell you about their product, but at nowhere at all during the entire conversation would they actually ask you to buy their products.
Well, okay, so let's play that out here for a second because we do have a trainer on for today's session after all. Is not selling your product a good way of selling?
No.
Is it potentially that they're so passionate about their project and their product that they just want to tell people about it and educate them, and in the process of doing so, they make other people interested in wanting to try their product, and therefore that's a way of selling?
Except that during that process, you should be able to pick up on the cues that the potential customer is giving you that enable you to progress the conversation in a way that gets you a sale. If you don't know how to do that,
I disagree.
You can't pick up on those cues.
I disagree because that implies trickery, right?
No, it doesn't.
It does. Like you just said so yourself. Well, let me break it down. You're saying you're waiting for cues of the person to insert your pitch in there, right? So you're intentionally looking for a hole to put to sell.
Absolutely disagree. It's just a different form of communication.
Okay.
Like the way that you and I have a conversation, you know when to speak based on what my pause is.
We're not talking about speaking here. We're talking about selling.
I know. It's the same thing.
So then explain it. If it's not what I just said, explain it.
I am explaining it.
Okay. But you're saying speaking.
I know.
I'm very specific.
I'm walking you down. I am walking you down a path. So go down the path with me. You know when to communicate with me, like when to answer my questions, when to interject your thoughts based on cues, right? The pauses, the tonality of my voice. So most of speech, like the majority of communication, is done non-verbally, right? When you are selling, you are using a language. You are learning, you are utilizing the skill sets of communication on a more conscious level than most people utilize their communication skills. That's why people who sell are often considered to be manipulators, because we are just more conscious of the communication that's going on between two people than others. I could pick up on the cues that suggest that you want a new coffee without you actually having to say, I want another coffee, because I know what I'm for. Does that manipulating the situation?
Yes. By your own definition. Oh my gosh.
No, it doesn't. Manipulation is when you're
if you are doing it intentionally.
It's just communication.
No. We're talking about selling. We're not talking about communicating. The end goal is for you to buy my product.
And all selling is
that is the end goal.
Selling is understanding communication and the psychology.
But you are confusing two things. I'm not talking. Communicating and selling are not the same thing, and people get this mixed up all the time. Selling, at the end of sales, somebody bought something. Either you bought my product or I bought your no. But somebody walked away with something. Communication and selling are not the same thing. What you said earlier was Your statement was that when you're selling, you're looking for places to insert salesmanship.
Right.
Okay. And my argument is, to me, that implies trickery. I think a better approach, and listen, I'll say it publicly too. I like the 10 or 20 steps to the sale, whatever it is now. I think that that's forced salesmanship. And I think that there's a lot of issues in the automotive industry because of that. Back in the days when we had an inefficient marketplace, it worked perfectly. It kept control. The customer didn't know anything about the deal, about the car, about cost, none of that. So it worked beautifully. Now it creates so many barriers. Salesmanship, or the best way of salesmanship, is discovery. Hey, we're having a conversation. You tell me what your problem is, and I try to solve it.
But
if my product doesn't solve your problem, then why am I even pitching it to you?
Conversation is just two people communicating with an end goal in mind. And that, if the end goal in mind is a transaction, then that, and I mean, arguably everything is transactional, or the relationship between two people whose souls are interconnecting to each other. That's a personal relationship, an intimate relationship, a love story on whatever level. Most relationships are not like that. Like, the majority of them are transactional. Every single conversation that you're having with a brand new person is a transactional conversation. It's just a matter of whether or not you know that you're transacting.
But you're getting out of the scope of the argument.
No, I'm not.
We are talking specifically about salesmanship, which implies a product or a service that you're going to buy. I don't care about deep soul connection and looking profoundly into your eyes. And that's not what we're talking about here.
And I'm saying it is all about selling a product.
Of course, that's all. It's all communication. But this is direct selling. This means I want you to buy my product, and I want you to buy my service. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the point that we're arguing here. Everything else is outside of the scope of the argument. And in that argument, your statement, for me, I think that a lot of people, one, get those two things mixed up, which is a mistake. And two, that type of mentality towards salesmanship implies trickery, because you're purposefully looking for a way to insert yourself into that person with your product or service. You don't even know if I need your product or service. You don't even know if it can help me in any way, shape, or form. I'm just selling you my product. You know what I mean? And if you are a master manipulator, like you mentioned earlier, then it's very easy for you to get people to buy your product and that have no need for it. It's more effective to have a conversation with somebody, figure out their issues, discover their problem, and then see if you can solve their problem with your solution. And if you can't, move on.
That's what I'm saying, weirdo. Sometimes
that's not what you said.
Yes,
that's not what you said at all.
Yours is transactional. It's still transactional. You were still trying to figure out what they want, and at the end, you were offering your services. If it makes sense, yes. That doesn't work if you don't offer it at the end. So if you have a conversation in which the two of you just chit chat about all of the things that you need, and then you're like, okay, thanks, bye. Then you did not progress it toward transactional. That is a skill. You have to know at what point you offer a solution.
So I'll give you a perfect example. When I first became an Auto Trader rep, you go 4 weeks to this thing called Jumpstart in Atlanta. You go Monday through Friday. They fly you back for the weekend, and then you're there again. And you do that for 4 weeks, and they drill and prep you. They tell you, they teach you all this stuff. And then they're like, okay, they release you into the wild. Go sell, right? And that's one of the things they always would say in the classes, like, you got to ask for the sale. You got to ask for the sale. You got to ask for the sale. And so I did that. I went out and I knocked on dealerships, and I was asking for the sale, and I was getting kicked out of stores left and right. When I started to listen to my clients and I started to discover how the product helps, if it helps at all, I walked away from so many deals because it didn't make sense. because what the customer wanted. Either they were thinking that if they got on Auto Trader, they were going to sell 50 cars or 100 cars. And if they didn't, they were going to cancel. I walked away from so many deals that didn't make sense because it doesn't fit. The discovery conversation didn't lead to a deal. And I never ask for business. Whenever I do discovery conversations, the client asks me their client is telling me, let's sign up. Let's do this.
What?
Because I've listened to what they've said and I discovered their issue. And in me talking about that, they see, one, that I understand their problem. Sometimes I discover things that they don't even know are issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't believe in that philosophy.
Well, I would say that the one thing if you're getting drilled, ask for the sale, ask for the sale, ask for the sale. That's basic level 1 sales training. Then you've got to learn when to ask for the sale. And then you've got to learn when to, like what you're talking about is high level salesmanship. And we're talking about podcasters at a convention who don't know how
No,
to.
we talked about we got into this tangent because of that.
It's two different things.
So,
there's higher level, but the basic framework of a conversation is still the same. It's transactional. That is the basic framework. And if you don't understand that, then selling, you're just working off of talent. Like, it's the difference between being talented at something and really freaking understanding what you're doing.
But see, to bring it back to the car business, like I hate that stuff, those steps or roads or whatever, because it makes the customer feel forced to buy. And that is a big, huge mistake. Sit down with your customer. Sit down with your customer and ask them questions. They may be coming in for a sedan, and in reality, they need a truck.
Again, that's
right?
That's higher level. You still have to start with the script, Herb. You still have to start with the script. It doesn't matter
why
if it's a
do you have to
script
start
on
with
the
the
phone
script?
or if it's a script on the floor.
Why? But
Because
why?
you
Why
can't
can't you
learn
just
how
sit
to
down
play-
and have a conversation with another human being and figure out what their issues are and what they're after and what they want, and then fit your solution into that? That's way more effective.
Because even Mozart had to know what the keys were first.
Yeah, but they gotta be the right keys. Pushing the customer down this funnel process just so that you can tell your manager, hey, I went through all the steps of the sale,
Right.
is not selling.
And then that's when we get into salesmanship versus I work at a car dealership. I have a job as a car guy. Like, do you want to be an Alarita or do you want to be a Joe Schmo that sells 5 cars a month and then gets fired? The difference
you think
is
that Ali Rita sits there and meet and greet and consideration and objection handling? No,
Do you
dude. He
think
sits
that
down and
Ali
he helps
Rita-
people.
And where do you think Alarita started?
Right, but he wouldn't be Ali Rita if he would have stayed in that mindset, in that path. Just because you start wrong doesn't mean that you can't fix it. I mean, look at my example that I gave you. Ask for the sale. You got to go in there and ask for the sale. No, dude, you got to go in there and figure out the problem and help people out. And they're going to ask you to sell them shit.
But you cannot even hear that if you are consciously aware of it. And the scripting and the steps to the sale, they help you to become consciously aware of those things.
I disagree fundamentally with that. It's completely wrong. It's completely backwards thinking. It's like going to the doctor and then your doctor's there like reading a script. Hi, how are you doing? No, that's not what a doctor does.
That's exactly what a doctor does.
He diagnoses. He asks questions. Yeah. What are your symptoms? What are you feeling? What's this? What's the other? Right?
What are those questions? Those questions are a series of questions.
Though.
That's exactly what it is.
Oh my God! You're twisting that's not scripting. What I'm talking about scripting. Step 1, greet the customer. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do that. And then you go to your manager and you got this customer on the B-back bus. And then your manager's like, well, did you walk them through the steps? Like, fuck your steps, man. Help the customer out. You can see I'm clearly passionate about Oh,
Have we ever gotten in an argument like this on?
We're not arguing.
No, we're not.
Listen,
arguing.
this is a perfect setup because now we're going to have a neutral person come in and they're going to solve the issue. So I disagree. I think that especially just to keep it in the car business, I think we're doing it wrong. Like back in the day, it worked beautifully, right? The customers didn't know. They just didn't know. Now that shit makes customers feel uncomfortable. You know how many people I've asked about their buying experience? And it's one of the things that they hate. They hate that the salesperson gets up and leaves. They hate that they have to that they keep getting handed off from department to department.
That's not.
They
what
hate
I'm
the greet
talking
and
about.
they hate all the steps and all the bullshit. And then some salespeople go as far as to say, "Well, I have to do this because it's part of the steps, my steps to the sale."
Okay,
like what the hell?
There's two different issues right there. First of all, like how many times do you have conversations in which you say, "What do you mean you didn't get the customer's last name? What do you mean you didn't get their phone number?" Like those are just basic frameworks for basic conversations that people don't even. Okay, that when I'm training, this is the way that I explain it. You have certain expectations that are part of having a conversation. You've been taught those since the time that you learned your first word. Your parents literally said, when you go up to somebody and you want to make a friend, you say, "Hi, my name is Charity. Will you be my friend?" That's a script. But we learned those from such a very, very basic, very, very young age that we don't even realize we've ascended to the next level of communication. And when you come into something like a sales job, you need to take a step back and look at those steps to a conversation again so that you can consciously know what you're doing so that you know how to improve. You might have the skill set.
That is incorrect. Mm-hmm. That is incorrect because by nature, that's going to guide you through a path of thinking about the steps. And if you miss a step, it's going to throw you off your game.
Originally, yes.
That is
at
a
first,
mistake.
It will
and
throw
that's
you
what I'm
off
saying.
your
That
game.
is a mistake. If you have a genuine conversation with your customer, if you genuinely connect with your customer on a human level and you hear their problems and you hear their concerns, I guarantee you that you will not forget that person's name because you're going to associate his issues with that person. It's going to be a deep connection. It's going to be a better connection than trying to go through these stupid steps. It's ridiculous.
It's because you just naturally know what the steps are, and so you've never had to stop and think about them. But when you are working with entry-level people, you have to teach them the steps.
But that's my whole argument with this point. It's a mistake to teach that. Because by nature, instead of teaching them the right way, you're teaching them stuff that's antiquated, outdated, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I disagree. I don't think it's antiquated. I think it's just, are the steps to the sale antiquated? Some of them, probably. But communication isn't antiquated.
No, but we're not talking about communication.
Yes, we are. That's exactly what we're talking about.
No, we're talking about forced communication or guided communication, which is completely different. What is effective communication?
You ask me this all the time. Just
what? Okay, so publicly here, what is effective communication?
Because I never remember what it is from the way you
effective communication isn't you telling people what to do. Effective communication is you finding a way for the other person to do what you want them to do.
That's manipulation.
That means that if you say it in a certain way and they don't get it, you can't change them. You have to change the way on how you say things.
That's manipulation.
You have to change.
Did you lose him?
You know what I'm saying? Like that is effective communication. There he is.
Hey, how are you?
Did you hear us arguing?
I did hear you guys arguing. It's okay. So, I thought I was at home for a minute.
It's right on.
I was like, why is my wife on this podcast?
Please excuse my dog in the background.
No worries, no worries.
Do you remember the first time that I was on the podcast and my dog barked, and you told me that was a cardinal rule of podcasting.
I know. Yeah. So I'm breaking it. Hey, Christian, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. Very nice to meet you. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on here.
Likewise. We're going to have a really good conversation already. We have a debate that you're going to settle for us. So you're walking into the right time here. But we kick things off with an intro. So tell us about you.
Started in the car business about 20 years ago. Started out washing cars and ended up leaving the car business, going to the bank side of the car business. I worked for Chase Auto Finance, actually, for the bank side of the car business. And I was recruited by a dealer that I was helping, who I'm still dear friends with to this day. And he said, "Hey, listen, how much are you making working at the bank?" And at that time, I was making about $43,000 a year, which was great. I had a child at an early age, and he said to me, "Hey, do you know you can make six figures selling cars?" And right away, I was like, eyes opened up. I was like, wait a minute. And he said, if you take care of people the way you've taken care of me, you'll be very successful in the car business. For a second. And it's really been like the key to how I've been successful. So he recruited me into the car business. And it's funny, I ended up going to another dealer. I didn't actually go to his dealership because it was kind of out of my way. And I kind of forced my way into an interview at a dealership in Manhattan. And the person asked me, he said, "Hey," it was a Lexus dealership. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, you ever sold cars before?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And he right away went to get up and he said, "You know what, go get some experience at a Nissan, Honda, Toyota dealership. We only hire managers here." So it's pretty weird because back then, in order to do sales in a high line or a luxury brand, you had to have management experience. You had to be like a sales manager in another dealership. So all the salespeople had management experience. Nowadays, I mean, you can, if you're good at, I've taken people from Target, Best Buy, Raymore Flan, these stores, and I put them into positions, right? So, I said to him, "Listen, I'm a supervisor at Chase Auto Finance. I know the car business. If you help me and teach me how to sell, I think I'll do well." And I kind of fought my way in, and the gentleman who interviewed me, we're still dear friends with to this day, and he gave me a shot. And I was intimidated. I walked into a dealership not knowing anything about cars or the car business. I remember the first time I heard triple net or tissue, right? My manager said to me, he goes, "Hey, listen, this deal is at tissue, so make sure you close this up," right? And I'm like, okay. And I'm walking down the hallway back to my customer, and when I see one of the guys, I'm like, "What the hell does tissue mean?" And he's just like, "Oh, that means you can't go any lower. Like, you're at the bottom." So there was no training back then. It was almost like, hey, you kind of figure it out on your own. And it's, I noticed that there was kind of like a gap there, and I did very well in the car business. I moved up pretty quickly, and I went on to manage some pretty cool stores, from Lexus to Mercedes-Benz stores. I was given a great opportunity by my general sales manager of mine. He took a shot on me, and I thank him every time I see him. And I've been blessed. I love the car business. I've been fortunate to have a pretty cool career, and I left the car business to start a training business for the car industry because I thought there was a kind of a better way. And I wanted to I always say, when you reach a certain point, you want to send the elevator back down, right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And see if we could help some people in the car industry be successful and have great careers. And if you do it the right way, it is a great business. Unfortunately, you get people that don't do it the right way, right? And we kind of cause some hurdles for ourselves that I don't think we need to have. So I started the training business right when the pandemic started, like right before the pandemic. And like nobody was investing in training. People were shutting their doors, actually, right? They were closing down. Yeah. So it was tough. But August of 2020, I had a dealer call me. He goes, "Hey, are you doing training?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "I'd like to talk to you about it." And I said, he was located in New York also. And I said, "I'll be there tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. So we're lucky enough to sign up with him. And it was a 90-day contract, and we went on for 2 years. So it's pretty cool.
That's
awesome.
It's
pretty cool. From there, we've kind of grown it, and now we're doing some pretty cool stuff in the training space where it starts out kind of sales training, but we quickly realized that it's leadership training that most dealerships need. So it's okay.
No, and that makes sense. I've talked about that on the show. Like oftentimes, when we do these sessions, these training sessions, and I'm not a trainer, I'm a consultant on the digital and data and stuff like that. But what I've noticed is that we set these trainings up at these stores, and then the managers never go to the training session. And I'm always like, what in the hell is going on here? How can you make sure that the training is being used and applied and hold people accountable if you don't even know what the hell they're training on? It makes zero sense.
It's so
like, I rather train the management and never train the salespeople, because if the managers know the stuff and they're bought into the philosophies, and they're gonna that's naturally gonna come down. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get that whole thing.
It's, I just spoke about this. I did a dealer group brought me in to do some sales training, and I think they have 4 managers, and not one of the managers was in the training. And we did 2 separate sessions. So it wasn't like, we just pulled people off the floor. We left half the team on the floor. And afterwards I came downstairs. I was like, why wasn't there any managers in the training? They said, we were watching the floor. I'm like, all right, you need 4 managers to watch the floor? Like, on a, it's like a Tuesday afternoon, right? So it was one of those things. It's I think it's a lot of it, and I hate to say this, a lot of it has to do with ego, right? We get to a position in the car business, and I've always said, leave the ego out of the car business, and we'll all do a lot better, right? But we get into this almost like you're like a guardian of your space, right? I've heard people say, well, if I train them and they get really good, then they're going to want my job. My thing is, if I have 10 people on my sales team and I'm training everybody, what are they going to do? Promote everybody? Right? So I'm not looking just to train, we do an evaluation. One of the things we do is we do an evaluation, how to evaluate your team and make sure you're hiring the right people for your team. And I think if you really pour into your people and you take the time to train with them and do additional coaching, and you care about your team and you care about their success, the store as a whole will do better.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4Eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4Eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealertalk. That's 4eyes.io/dealertalk.
Your management team says things like, well, if we train them, then they'll take my job. The underlying is, one, I don't want my employees to progress, and I don't want my employees to know that how to progress or that they can progress. You want that as your culture? That's what we want.
It's unfortunate, and I see that. We do, like I said, we do an evaluation of you. We teach leaders how to evaluate their teams. We teach a program called Remarkable Leaders, where we actually give them a sheet where they can analyze and assess their team's kind of needs and weaknesses, right? So basically just giving them, you list them by name, and then you give them a grade, and you sit down with them. First you do it individually, and then you sit down as a team of leaders or managers in your team, and you kind of go over why you graded somebody. So it's A performer, B performer, C performer, and D performer. And you kind of talk about like, hey, I rated that guy a D, but I rated him a B. Then you have those conversations. Why do you do that? But if you're rating everybody, let's say if you're rating someone and everybody's kind of rating him a D performer, you want to have a conversation, right? You want to say, okay, if he's a D performer, why is he a D performer? And have we given him enough training that we can move him up? Or 2, maybe he's not a right fit. And the question is at that point, why is he still here? Mm-hmm. Right? So we ask this question. One question you ask, you get in a group with your leaders. If I knew what I knew now, would I hire him or her today? Right? So if you ask yourself that question and your answer is no, I wouldn't hire them today, then why are they there? Okay. So now I would either manage them up or manage them out, but you have to make a decision. Right. And you come up with a strategy.
Let me expand on that a little bit, because it's something that's been in some ways on the forefront here at the show, because we got some stuff, if you have your experience and you can, take that onto a group or a dealership or whatever, make it better. That's fantastic. I think that one of the things that I've always promoted and talked about here on the show is that I feel like this, I'm on the, like I said, marketing and data side. And I always get calls from decision makers on like, how can I spend more money? What campaign can we do? What mailer can we send? And I'm always like, none. Train your people.
Train your people. Mm-hmm.
Right? Just train your people, because you can shut all your marketing down if you have good people and good processes, but you can't have fantastic marketing and no people and no process. That it will never work.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is, if you are a person that is in the automotive space and you are doing unethical things, and then you leave the space and you come back as a trainer, is that even something that is what is your take on that? Some of these trainers that are out there, man, I don't get it. The practices that they've done or things that they've been a part of, and now they're coming back into the space and trying to train people. I don't understand why that even happens. And decision makers, it's like they don't even notice that stuff. I don't get it.
Well, so I'm not here to obviously judge anybody, but listen, if you're not ethical, it's going to show up very quickly. Some of our training we do is compliance training also. I've gone into dealerships where they just didn't know they were doing the wrong thing, right?
Right.
Some people are doing some things that are underhanded. And at that point, myself as a trainer, I'm going to make a decision if I want to even be affiliated with that dealership, right? If I don't want to be associated with a dealership who's, being sued by the attorney general.
Right.
It's like,
sure.
You're like,
yeah, I'd rather not.
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'll pass on that.
I'm good.
Yeah. So,
Back
it's
up slowly.
Exactly like the Homer Simpson. Into the no, but it's true. If some people, have learned from their experiences, that's one thing, right? If they kind of said, you know what, I've done things wrong. Listen, I don't believe in judging anybody, but if they've changed their mindset and they can take their space, look at like a Jordan Belfort, right? Like, the Wolf of Wall Street kind of guy. He's doing tons of sales training now, but I haven't been to his training, but who knows as far as like how he pitches it, and is he teaching a way to say, hey, this is the way to do it and do it right. I've already done it wrong, so here's how I would do it going forward if I had a chance to do it over again. So that's how I would kind of approach it. Me personally, I've always been the type, coming from Chase, right? I was working at Chase Auto Finance. And I was a supervisor in the customer service department, and my mother had my business card up on the refrigerator. She was excited. She would tell her friends, "Oh, my son's an executive at Chase." Like I was, and when I went to leave Chase, and I told my mother, "Hey, I'm going to work as a car dealer. I'm going to go sell cars." My mother's like, "You're going to be a car salesman?" Like, how am I going to even tell my friends? Like, it was almost like she'd rather, other, jobs.
Yeah.
But going from a manager at Chase to a car dealers never had this great reputation. If anything, they had a really bad reputation. Nobody grows up wanting to be a car salesman. And I told my mother, I said, listen, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to be knowledgeable, upfront, and I'm going to be honest. And if I can't be successful doing that, then I'll leave. I was in my early 20s, and she's like, you know what, go for it. My mother was in sales for one of the largest shipping companies in the world, and she said, you know what, go for it. And I'm very fortunate. My brother, my younger brother, is also in the car business, and we've had great careers. The first client I ever sold a car to, he still calls me when he needs a car. So
that's awesome.
And that's the kind of quality that, you said nobody goes into the car business intentionally. And I think that that's something that Herb and I are very actively try to change that rhetoric within the community, because it changes lives. And not just for the people who work in the automotive industry, but the people that there's a direct correlation between overcoming poverty and transportation. Direct correlation. Yeah. I just read a study yesterday that was talking about if you live in an inner city, for every year that you live in an inner city, the chances your income goes down 1% as an adult. Wow. And transportation, reliable transportation, is the the key to that. And so people within the automotive space, we just stumbled into it. We have the opportunity to change lives and entire economics. And we instead, so many people within the space choose dishonesty and suspect behaviors when we could be honorable, intentional, ethical people. And when we have honorable, intentional, ethical trainers, then we propagate positivity and not negativity.
Absolutely.
And
I think a lot of that comes from, like you said, who gets into the car business, right? Let's go back a little bit, and who kind of got into the car business, right? It was people who, like I said, it wasn't something you planned for, but you ended up in the car business. So yeah, back then the car industry had a kind of a seedy kind of, connotation to it, right? And now what happens is those people continue to train people that were in the business. When I got hired, they said, all right, go sit with so-and-so. Like, he's one of our top guys, go sit with so-and-so. Or the top guy was way too busy, so they put you with the second or third top guy. And, he would tell you right away, oh yeah, the car business used to be a good racket, and you're sitting there as a young person, like, hey, excited about this job. And they didn't have any formal training, right? So they put you with somebody, and here this guy is either telling you like how terrible customers are and all, he badmouth customers. And what happens to your expectations as a person? You start saying to yourself, well, hey, wait a minute, did I make the right decision? And if I'm going to be in this business, I have to be shady to do it. And that's not the case. If you really care, I have a son, I had my son at an early age. My son's now 26 years old. And at one point he went into the car business, and I said to him, I said, if you really care about helping the customer achieve their goals, the money will follow. But if you're just chasing the money, you're gonna be taking ups off the showroom floor for the rest of your life. If you really, look to like help the customer buy a car, find out their needs and concerns, do an incredible meet and greet, know your product better than anybody else, be honest and upfront. Like if you don't know the answer, I just met a young gentleman, 21 years old. He was a valet, and they asked me to talk to him. This is the dealership that I'm training. They said, hey, we have this guy. We just moved him onto the showroom floor. Can you speak to him for a couple minutes? And, he had his suit on, and he was excited about, they introduced me to him, and he's coming out of the service drive, and I introduced myself, and his eyes were all wide open. Like, he was nervous. Like, you could tell it was like his first day on the floor. And I said, you excited? He goes, yeah, I'm excited. And he tells me, he goes, I know more about these cars than anybody here. That's why they moved me into sales. And I said, use this to your advantage. The fact that you don't know anything is great, but explain to the customer, hey, when it comes to the car, I know more about these cars than anybody else in the showroom. As far as the sales side, if I don't have an answer for you, I'm going to make sure I work harder than anybody else in here to get you the answer and get you the right answer. Now, to me, when you're honest and open with people, people can tell. So that's going to be his catapult in the car business. I always thought, if you're honest and upfront and you're sincere with people, they can tell. If you're shady and you're kind of, then you find yourself a customer leaves, and then you're calling him to follow up. He doesn't even answer your phone call, and you start asking yourself like, oh, and you tell yourself, oh, that guy was just a waste of time. Meanwhile, that customer bought a car. And the question is, why didn't he buy it from you? Why didn't he even give you a shot? It's because you didn't build a relationship, and the customer picked up on something that was there that you may not notice that you're giving off. So if you do it right, it's an incredible industry. Just to give you an idea, I'm a GED student, and I have, I don't have a college degree, and I've run some of the largest Mercedes-Benz dealerships in the country. So it's, I've been fortunate, and like I said, the car business is an incredible avenue to build a great career.
Yeah, no, I totally, I'm in, I'm in that same vibe, man. Like to go back to what Charity said, like one of my biggest pet peeves is the fact that there's not one person that I've ever interviewed or talked to that's gone into this business intentionally. And it sucks. It sucks because it's such a great industry. I mean, cars now are like computers on wheels.
Oh yeah.
The level of technicality and the level of knowledge base that you have to either fix or sell these cars is insane. You're running millions of dollars. It's a retail operation that does millions of dollars. it has such a huge impact in your local community. I mean, it's got all these pluses, right? And yet people want to stay away from it because of this damn stigma.
Yep.
And then all these, and still today, 2023, there's still people in the business that are doing things to perpetuate that. And it drives me insane.
Yep, 100%. Go ahead.
The accountability for the factor just blows my mind, or the lack of accountability.
Yeah, as leaders in the car business, I mean, it has to be a shift somewhere. As leaders in the car industry, and believe me when I tell you, I think there are more good than bad. Right? I think,
for sure, no question.
Especially nowadays, it's starting to switch, especially with all the technology, and I think people do see the benefits of the car industry. But I literally just a couple of days ago, I had a client, old client of mine, reach out, and she said, "Christian, I need your help. I'm looking for a car," and she's a lifelong BMW driver, and she wanted to try something different. So she goes into a Audi dealership, and this is a terrible story. I mean, I probably shouldn't be telling it, but I'm going to tell you. And she walks in with her daughter, and asked to test drive a car. She has an appointment to test drive the car. So she goes in, she checks in, the salesperson comes over, and he goes, "All right, you want to test drive a vehicle? Great." He goes, "Can I have your driver's license?" She goes, "Sure." He goes, "And is your husband here with you?" And she goes, "No, he doesn't." He goes, "Oh, no, we just like to have all parties present before we go on the test drive. All like decision makers present." And she looked at him and said, "Give me my driver's license. I'm leaving," and walked out. She was referred to me, someone who knows me. She called and he said, "Call this guy Christian," and I helped her. I put her with the dealership to help her with the car. But can you imagine that in this?
Let me ask you something, interject, because this goes directly to what me and Charity were arguing about in the beginning. Do you think that whole parties isn't that potentially part of their road to the sale procedure?
Okay,
he's fishing.
Well, but I mean,
I don't know what side of what side I'm on right now. I'll be honest with you.
It's probably written down somewhere. There's probably a document at that dealership that says that. That's what's insane. I don't get it. Like it's just.
I understand your point, and that's a good point. Was he anticipating or assuming the close, and just was it an honest question, right? From now, here's the thing, right? Perception is reality. In the customer's mind, that may be the case. The way the customer presented to me, it was not the case.
Right, but
that's the customer's perception.
Now let's flip that story. Same scenario that you presented, and I'm the salesperson, and I start to ask her questions. Oh, how what drove you to Audi? What made you choose us for your visit today? What are you looking for? What tell me about this, tell me about that. I see you have a kid. Do you have more children? Like, space is important to you, fuel economy, and just ask questions, right? And figure out what her problem is, and then present her 2 or 3 solutions that could solve that problem. Is that person going to walk out of there? Hell no. But because it's written down somewhere at that dealership that both parties need to be present, and if you don't follow this, and I'm at the tower, and I come down and I find out that you're working a deal without the husband there, you're going to get yelled at. It's just stupid shit, man. I'm sorry, pardon my French, but I don't get what is going on with these things. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, that again, that's a great point, because if I asked the salesperson, right, what happened with that customer, he'd probably give me some sort of story like that, right? I hope.
But that's a training thing. That's not what we were talking about. We were specifically talking about communicating versus. You said that when we use scripting and things like roads to the sale, that is
this trickery. It's what it is.
And manipulation.
It's trickery.
And I was saying it is not. They're just basic communication skill sets.
I think it's an outline. If you use it as an outline, I can understand both sides of what you're saying. I feel like I'm,
Yeah, that's what we're saying. It's a good thing we got Christian on, because he's a neutral party here. So.
So I think if you use it as a guideline, but let people trust their judgment. I tell people all the time, it's what's right and wrong. Like you're probably doing some things that are taught in sales subconsciously, right? But you want to kind of use it actively. But in that case, you have to have some some tact, right? Some ability to assess a situation, and I guess not anticipate the next step, but kind of let the deal happen, right? By asking some questions up front and then saying, okay, fantastic. Like you said, I see you have a child. Mind you, it was a 2-door convert. Are you, what are you driving now? If she just had the BMW, start finding out some fact-finding questions, and don't start to assume the sale too early. And that's what a lot of, I'd say, senior salespeople do, is they start to, before the customer can even finish the sentence, they know where to go with the sale. They know what the next step is going to be, and they go to that before the customer even took them there. And that also causes a problem because the customer doesn't feel like you're listening to them. You may be 100% right, but you don't feel that the salesperson is listening to you when you're the client.
The customer feels like you're driving them through these things that they don't want to go through.
How many times has a salesperson, and a customer had a conversation, and the salesperson goes, oh, well, I have 6 months left on my lease. And they go, oh, we can get you out of the vehicle early. Don't worry about that. We have a program right now. And the customer didn't even finish the sentence. Let the customer, and I tell this to them all the time, even if you know where the customer is going, let the customer finish the sentence, pause and say, great. Sometimes that information, you're not even going to, follow up on it. You may just hold it in your backpack for a little while and maybe bring it up later on and say, great, no problem. I understand you have 6 months left on your lease. That makes my job so much easier. Let's just get to know the car. Let's just find out exactly what you need, what your concerns are. Let's just make sure we find the right car for you and your family. Once you've done that, you've done the test drive, you've done the needs and concerns, you've done the walk around presentation. Later on, when you see the customer's like, all right, yeah, this is the right car for me and my family, then you could bring up, hey, you know what? There's a program right now, a pull ahead program where we're able to get you out, 3 to 6 months early. Let's see if you qualify for that. You don't always have to, shoot the answer out as soon as the customer mentions there's a problem. Sometimes you got to hold that information back a little bit.
Right. But that's not just, shooting the answer out at the wrong and not letting people finish their sentences. That's not just bad salesmanship. That's bad communication.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Imagine in a relationship, right? When me and my wife are talking and I'm not letting her finish her sentence, but I think I know where she's going with it. It's, you're not listening. Like that's her mindset is like, you're not listening to me. So you have to let people finish. And again, it's basic communication skills is huge in any type of sales, whether it's car sales, whatever it is you're doing.
No, for sure. My thing is my big pet peeve and argument with this whole thing is that I understand why it was done that way. I understand that back in the days, customers didn't have any information and the dealer had all the control, right? And so if you have a system, then anybody can do it, right? If you have you can bring anybody in and put them in that chair. And if they follow the system, they're going to get pretty much similar results. I get all that. But that's not the world we live in now. And we shouldn't be just putting people there because they fogged the mirror, right? Like we got to hire the right people with skills, people that have a certain skill set.
Not just a certain skill set, a certain desire to become better.
Yep. Right. And not put them down this old antiquated thing that doesn't fit the world we live in today. It's much more efficient for you to have a conversation with the human being and figure out what their issue is and then solve the problem that they have. Figure out the problem that they don't even know that they have. How valuable is that? And the customer is going to end up telling you to sell them. So and not the other way around. I don't know, man. It's just, I get super passionate about this stuff because to me, it's like common sense shit. Right. And then I get a call from clients being like, hey, where can I spend more money on my marketing campaign? It's like nowhere, dude. Put that shit into training your people.
Absolutely. It's funny. Interviewing, it's wild. I met with a dealer a couple of years ago, and it always stuck out in my head, where they called me in to come in for an interview, and I met with one of the managers, and I sat down with the person, and he right away just started talking about himself and how and I did the little, so how do you get in the car business? And right away he just kept going and going and going and going. And we sat there for about 30, 40 minutes. I probably said a total of 10 words the entire time. And he turned at the end, he goes, I think you're going to be great for this position. And I'm like, he doesn't know anything about me. He never even asked me about my background. He just started talking. But I kind of pulled his ego into the whole situation, right? And it goes into like you said, the training and being able to interview and having those interview skills. Like I ask questions on interviews. What books or audio do you listen to for personal development? You can't fake that answer.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fake it. If you
Yeah.
either you do it or you don't. And I've had interviews get very uncomfortable where salespeople who were in the car business a long time, you ask them that question and you see like the little bead of sweat start dripping down. It's happening. And they're like, so you can't fake that. Asking questions. I used to work years ago. I used to work at Delta Airlines, right? So one question I would ask is, all right, so I'm going to give you a scenario and I want you to tell me how you would handle this. All right. So you work in the baggage claim. Okay. And a client comes over and you can see she's got tears in her eyes. And you find out that she's flying in for her wedding. And she comes up to your counter and says, hey, my wedding dress did not come off the carousel. And her wedding's in the next day or so. What do you do? And then how do you handle that situation? And she's like, when I try to calm her down and then we go look for it. Okay, great. They tell me all the things that they would do. And I said, okay, but now you get a phone call that the dress was ruined. It was run over. It was trashed. It's ripped. It's shredded. How do you now talk to that client and explain to them that their dress is ruined? And what do you do to help the client? And you see people actually, and I tell them, take a second to think about it. And they come up with these different scenarios. Oh, I'd help them buy a new dress. I come up with these different scenarios. Asking questions like this in an interview is going to help you understand the person's mindset, right? And understand their problem-solving ability, their listening ability, right? So if you don't hold very good interviews, and unfortunately we hold interviews out of necessity, meaning, you don't have enough salespeople on the floor, so you need to hire right away. So what do? You lower the bar and you get somebody in the chair, right? Instead of me, what I like to do, I was always hiring. I used to make appointments for interviews like BDC made them for sales. Like I want someone every day coming into my showroom. My salespeople would come over and they're like, who's that? And I'm like, oh, it's an interview. And they go, well, all our desks are full. I'm like, we'll figure it out. And my thing was, I'm always looking to better the team, right? And this goes back to evaluating your team. If there's someone that needs to be replaced or it's not the right fit for your store, you have to make decisions, but you have to be prepared to make those decisions by having good candidates in line. So again, going back to interviewing, if you're not asking the right questions, you're going to get the wrong people in your store. And unfortunately, that's going to affect the entire team.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with that 100%. I think that's one of the things that causes the stigma that we have, in my opinion, is that leadership at dealerships will hire anybody, just anybody to do sales. It's nuts to me. I do not get that at all.
I had a dealership tell me, he goes, I just need bodies.
Yeah.
I just need
the more I have, they're going to fire themselves. Like I need 50 because 6 of them are just going to fire themselves. And, and then they keep that thing.
And then they justify bad histories. Like, well, their background check came back horrible, but somehow we justify that and hire them anyway.
How about dealers that don't even do background checks? Like, to me, it should be difficult to get a job in my store.
Yes, exactly.
It should
be like easy. A coveted position.
Exactly.
That what I mean?
When you build a culture, like a high performance, we have non-negotiables where, hey, you know what? This is how we operate. And you hold people to high standards. Your standards dictate what you're going to get. And what happens is I had one of the stores I was training, they had a gentleman there that was doing 40 cars, 20, anywhere from 25 to 35 cars a month. Top sales performer. And he was, I'm sorry to say, he was a cancer in the store. He had a bad attitude. He would tell off the manager. One day he wanted to leave early. They had a small sales team, and one person had called out. It was another person's day off. And he goes, I'm going to head out early today. I got some stuff to do. And the manager, this is the general sales manager, says, you know what? So-and-so called out sick today. I'm short-staffed. I really need you to stay. And he goes, figure it out.
Oh my gosh, that makes me angry.
Now, here's the thing. And I get the phone call about it, right? The next day I'm there for training and I come in and they go, now I'm talking to the owners with the general sales manager and they go, oh, don't be too hard on him. It's okay. It was slow anyway yesterday. I said, oh, you think I'm upset with him? I expected this from him.
Yeah.
This is not a surprise that he did this. I'm surprised you guys are allowing it.
Do you allow it?
That's just it. Again, you get what you tolerate.
Right. You have to stop. This is a big problem in our industry, man.
Mhm.
We have to stop promoting people and giving opportunities to bad employees just because they sell cars.
100%.
Yes.
So
It's so dumb.
we ended up letting the gentleman go. And everyone on the next month, everyone on the team, the 8 car guy, the 10 car, they all sold more cars. They didn't miss a beat. And we spoke to them. We said, listen, so-and-so's not here anymore. And yes, he was the top guy in the store, but things are not going to be tolerated the way they were before. Now, you all have the opportunity to benefit from it. But here's what we need from you. We need the phone calls. We need the follow-up. We need to make sure you're following the process the right way. We need to TO every single deal, right? I want to meet every single one of the customers that comes in the door. Nobody leaves without a TO. So everyone benefited from this move. The store did not miss a beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the underlying benefit of doing something like that, the message that it says to your employees is humongous. Either way, right?
Absolutely.
If we tolerate that, then it sends a message to your entire employees. And if we don't, it sends a different message, right? And I think that's one of the things that we miss as well when we put up with stupid stuff like that.
How about
Like it tells the employees that they don't matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? That's what
There's
it says.
this in the book Extreme Ownership. He talks about where he was training. I think they were in buds, and they were all carrying boats on their heads, and there was 2 teams, and the one team was number 1 every single time, and then the other team was last every single time. The guy that was last kept complaining that his team wasn't doing well, and so they flipped the leaders. And the guy that was on the first team, they put him on the back. And that team immediately became this competition for the first team.
Yep.
Because it's all about how you lead. And it's about taking, obviously, because this is extreme ownership, taking ownership for that on every level. Not just me as a leader, but like expecting everybody that I work with to take ownership for their stuff. And then my managers and my leaders need to be able to take ownership for their shit as well. That's how we get that.
I wish I had this here. I have a workbook for the training that we do. And one of the things that we say is one is job descriptions, right? Especially for leadership, people who are in leadership positions. The job description should start with, I blank, take responsibility for the sales department, whatever department it is. Take responsibility for the sales department. I am responsible for everything this team does and does not do. That should be the first line of every job description. I am responsible for everything this team does and does not do. Whether they win or they lose, I'm responsible for it. When you look at it from that aspect, right, and you say, hey, you know what, everything is my fault. If you look at that's how growth happens. But when you say, well, it was so-and-so dropped the ball on that, we don't get any better from that. I don't get any better from that.
Right. The other thing from that mindset too that I really appreciate, and it's kind of like the motto I live my life by, is that it gives you control. When it's your fault, you can fix it. When it's somebody else's fault, you're screwed.
Absolutely.
Right. So, Christian, anyway, man, dude, listen, I've appreciated this conversation. I hope you the listeners are not. I'm not yelling, folks. I'm just passionate.
I didn't think you were yelling.
So thank you so much for doing this. There is one question that we ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years and why?
Great question. I see it going more towards, as far as the customer experience, obviously everything's digital, right? Where customers, there are platforms out there that are helping customers buy cars easier through digital platforms. If we don't make some changes quickly in the customer experience aspect and the sales aspect of it, I think you're going to see it go towards that Apple, like Genius Bar type of situation where the customer comes in and there's a product specialist that shows them the car. There's, maybe a couple of managers there. They're closing managers and they're saying, hey, you know what? Here's the number on the car. You know the vehicle you want, the product you want. Here's the numbers on the vehicle. You have a little bit of wiggle room, whatever the case may be. Or they do it on the phone and they come in and they say, all right, here's my QR code. I'm here to pick up my vehicle. And they go, that's the your car's in spot 8234, and so-and-so is going to show you the vehicle. We have to get better at the customer experience aspect of it. Buying a car should not be difficult. And unfortunately, it is. Why do customers hate shopping for cars? They do. Nobody is excited about going into a dealership to buy a car, and it should be an exciting experience. And it's a lot of it is the history and the stigmata of the car business, but a lot of it is us and how we don't look at it as leaders and owners. I tell leaders all the time and owners of dealerships, be a customer in your own store, right? Like every now and then, order a part, call up from another number and try ordering a part for a car and see how it goes. Call and make a service appointment, see how it goes. Look at your inventory online. Go through the cars and look through your inventory as an owner. And be a customer in your own store. I see stores that you go to their Meet the Staff page and there's no pictures, or some of them have pictures, or there are salespeople there that aren't there anymore. We have to get better at improving the experience for the customer, or else we're going to see some huge changes in the way people do business with our stores.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I love that. And I typically don't do this after the 5-year question, but you just touched on on one point that drives me absolutely insane, and that's the experience conversation. We're so good at talking about the experience. Everybody knows that experience is the thing, yet we all do the same shit. It's the same recycled stuff. Like you can go to 10 dealerships, it's pretty much the same process, which that's not an experience. Mm-hmm. If it's replicatable, it's not an experience.
We say right? break the script. Right?
It's so easy to do right now. The dealers that do it, which there are some dealerships out there that are doing it right, mm-hmm. Dude, you can tell it's different. You know what I mean? You could just tell, you can feel it. You can go on their website and it feels different.
Absolutely.
So, that's a great one, man. I loved it. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. That's all the time that we have for today. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing. What you do? We inspect it with our DT vendor management.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4Eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4Eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealertalk. That's 4eyes.io/dealertalk.